Let's get into Nangnang's shrine. Nangnang shrine is interesting. So the basic setup is you have a bunch of grungs that live here under a chieftain. You have some elite warriors out front. There are uh, archers on top of the shrine. There are supports that can be called in. Um, as written, this looks a lot like it's supposed to lead to just a giant grung melee. Uh, I don't I did not run it that way, and I would not recommend running that way unless your players really just want to kill a bunch of grung. The reason for that is at this point, and especially if you've already seen Dung Rung Lung or encountered grungs elsewhere, they're not hard to kill at all. Especially if you have AoE players that can do large AoE damage, this will just become a bloodbath. So, first piece of advice, haven't even got into the layout of the shrine. Decide if you actually want this to be a combat encounter. But so, getting into the shrine itself, uh, 18A is the steps up to the shrine doors. Again, there's nothing special going on here. It's really just the grung aspect, how you want to run it. Players can just walk through into 18B. If you don't encounter the grungs outside, then you'll probably have them encounter, Chief Yorb, the head of the grungs in there. An interesting thread about Chief Yorb is that it is generally he wants to scare away or kill any intruders, but if the players manage to save his son earlier in Omu, in one of the events where there's a veggie pygmy sacrifice of a grung, that grung is the chief's son, and if they have saved the son and you can put that all together, then he will talk to them. Um, that said, I'm not sure Yorb would even know much about what's going on here anyway, because he has not been able to solve the central part of this shrine. So, once you get into 18B, with or without grungs, this whole place is just full of illusionary items that appear to be incredibly valuable weapons, armor, swords, gems, jewels, plates, you name it, it's here. This seems like maybe we just hit the jackpot. The punchline of the joke is all of this stuff is worthless. As soon as it is taken outside the doors of the shrine, it will revert to scrap metal or wood or junk. So that's a fun bait and switch for the players. But in the middle of 18B, in the dead center of the temple, is a mosaic on the floor that shows uh, Nangnang's part in the Legend of the Nine Gods. There is an inscription that says Nangnang teaches us to bow, or teaches us to serve only ourselves. And so this is the clue to unlock the magically sealed doors to Area 18C. So all of this magically disguised treasure, which can be detected by Detect Magic, it'll probably give off a wave of illusion that will knock the caster out if they cast it in here, because the whole place is going to light up like a Christmas tree. But once one player picks up a valuable item and approaches the door to 18C alone, it will unlock, revealing the puzzle cube on a pedestal that they can simply take and walk out. Uh, and that's the whole thing. That is the entirety of this shrine. I think my commentary on it is both of my groups that have run through this shrine have spent far more time trying to find upgrades for their gear, only to be disappointed when they left. That has been very entertaining to watch happen, but be prepared for players to ask you, oh, is there a better spear? Are there any fancy bows? Is there a nice set of armor? So just be ready for those questions, because this is going to spike the greed in your players quite nicely. The other problem I have seen is the players will try to present one of their own valuable items to the door, which, the way I interpret it, the shrine doesn't work. They have to pick a magic item from the shrine, which can lead to a fun situation where they assume that there is something very bad going to happen to them if they take anything from this shrine, which the only bad thing they're going to get is a bunch of disappointment when they find out that +3 Iqua of greater flaming doom is just a stick. Um, I said at the top, I'll say it again, I'm not a fan of fighting more grungs or necessarily fighting any grungs. Um, just because I don't think they're that interesting to fight, and that many grungs, you're probably going to want to run it in grouped initiative or something if you do fight here. I have used this shrine in both parties that I am running as one of the shrines that they find obvious evidence that other people are getting the cubes. And by that I mean I have had the grungs dead in the water, blood everywhere, both doors wide open. Well, in one group, both doors were wide open. In the other one, the kobolds had reset the door, but not the cube. But just using it as kind of a, hey, here's where a bunch of grungs got killed. Somebody else in the city, the Red Wizards or the Yuanti, are gathering these cubes too. So it gives your players a reason to interact with the other NPC factions here. So I think that's a very interesting, and I've enjoyed taking it that way, approach to avoid a massive combat here that doesn't really have that many stakes. So that is my advice for Nangnang's Shrine, and thanks for watching. We'll be back next with the last and maybe most confusing for many people final shrine in Omu.